Good morning, class. This morning before our lesson, I thought we would talk about breathing exercises and why they're important. Breathing exercises are a way to relieve stress, focus, and relax. Since it's October, I decided to make ours a little bit on theme with the month. I want you to look at the deep breathing pumpkin. Do you see how it has 3 white arrows going up and then 3 light orange arrows going down? What you're going to do is using your finger, go up like an arrow, pretending to trace the ridge of the pumpkin. You don't need to touch your screen. You can just put your finger up in an arrow position, just like you're drawing one in the air. When you trace the ridges of the pumpkin, when you go up, when you draw that fake arrow in the air, I want you to breathe in. And then you're going to hold it and trace down. So draw an arrow in the sky going down and do a breathe out. So when I say trace up, I want you to use your finger, draw in the air, and breathe in. And then you're going to hold it until I say trace down, and then you're going to breathe out slowly. So trace up, trace down, trace up, trace down, trace up, trace down. It may seem a little silly practicing these deep breathing activities, but I promise you that with a lot of practice, you'll be able to feel a difference in your stress. It is such an easy way to relax and ground yourself. If you ever feel stressed out or overwhelmed, try to do these breathing exercises. Just breathe in for 3 seconds, hold it, and breathe out for 3 seconds. Last class, you learned how to notice when somebody is feeling confident, and you learned what makes you feel confident. What helps you notice other people's feelings? Empathy. Practicing helps you build your confidence so you can do your best and feel proud. Raise your hand if you like to walk outside when it's raining. How about sometimes? Never? We aren't all alike, are we? Some of us always like to walk in the rain. Some of us only like to walk in the rain sometimes, maybe when we're prepared with an umbrella. Some of us never like to walk in the rain. We prefer to do different things at different times. We all have different preferences. We're going to play a game called Human Bar Graphs. It's called Human Bar Graphs because if we were in class, we would all be at different levels, like a bar graph. Human Bar Graphs is a game about different preferences. So the first rule is if I say something that you always like to do, you're going to stand up and stay standing. Rule 2 is if I say something you sometimes like to do, sit down and stay sitting. Rule 3 is if I say something you never like to do, squat down and stay squatting. So I'll say, for instance, I like going for a long walk at the end of the day. If you always love to go on a long walk, stand up. If you only sometimes like to go on long walks, stay seated. And if you never like going on long walks, squat down and stay squatted. Imagine your other classmates around you. Some of your friends don't like going on long walks, so they'd be squatting down. Some love going on long walks, so they'd be standing up. So your classmates would be at different heights all around you. So let me give a couple more examples. Do you always, sometimes, or never like to clean up your room? Remember, if you always like to clean up your room, stand up. If you sometimes like it, stay seated. And if you never like it, squat down. Next one. Do you always, sometimes, or never like to play by yourself? Are you standing, sitting, or squatting? For me, sometimes I like to do things alone, like crosswords or play a video game alone. But other times, I like to play games with other people. So this would be a sometimes for me, so I would be sitting. Do you always, sometimes, or never like to climb trees? For me, I would be squatting right now because climbing trees means being really high up, and I'm a little bit afraid of heights. Do you always, sometimes, or never like to stay up late? Are you sitting, squatting, or standing? I have a feeling a lot of you are probably standing right now. Do you think everybody that was participating in this had the same preferences? I don't think so. You all have different preferences. For instance, if I was playing at the same time as you, I wouldn't have stood up for the climbing a tree one. You may have been standing up. When I asked if you like to stay up late at night, I only sometimes like to. It depends on how tired I am, so I would have squatted for that one. So we all have different preferences, and that's important to realize. Let's talk about two students that have different preferences. Here are Tiana and Brandon. They are science partners. Today, they are looking at worms. Their assignment is to pick up a worm and study its body parts. How do you think Tiana feels? She looks like she's really interested, maybe happy to be working on this science project. How can you tell? Maybe because she looks like she's focusing? And she's the one holding it? Does Brandon have the same feelings as Tiana? No. How do you think Brandon feels? Disgusted? How can you tell? He's making a disgusted face. His mouth is turned down. His eyebrows are all furrowed. Think about the human bar graphs game in this worm activity that Brandon and Tiana are doing. If I had said I always, sometimes, or never like to study the body parts of a worm, do you think Tiana would have stood up, sat down, or squatted? What about Brandon? Tiana and Brandon have different preferences. Some of you may feel like Tiana, and some of you might feel like Brandon. Let's refer to our empathy poster. Look at this first thought bubble. Tiana notices Brandon's feeling clues. It says, look at her face and body for clues. How does he or she feel? She thinks he's feeling disgusted and maybe scared by the worm. She wants to check if she's right, so she says to him, it looks like you're disgusted by the worm. Do you want to hold it? Brandon will shake his head no. What is his point of view? Well, now Tiana understands his point of view, and she has empathy for him. She knows it wouldn't make him happy to touch the worm. Tiana respects Brandon's preferences, but she wants him to enjoy the worm activity with her. How can I help, and what is a kind thing to say? What is something kind she could say or something helpful she could do? Give it think time. Maybe she could tell Brandon that she understands his preference. Maybe she could hold the worm for Brandon and point out the interesting things so he understands what's going on in the lesson. Maybe she could show Brandon that the worm isn't going to hurt him, and it might feel gross to touch, but it's not too scary. Tiana decides to talk to Brandon about his preference. She says, I understand you don't want to hold the worm. That's okay, I'll hold it for you, and we can both look at it together. Tiana showed Brandon compassion. You'll learn more about compassion in our next lesson. I'm now going to show you how to practice empathy. Think about the questions on the poster to help you understand and respect the other person involved. I sometimes like to, or I never like to, play with a little gold mouse. I never like to do this, but it is Boris's favorite toy. He always loves to play with his little gold mouse. We have different preferences. Another way to understand preferences. I love to eat tacos. Boris loves to eat cat food. I don't like to eat cat food. I will never like to eat cat food. And Boris will never eat tacos. We have different preferences, whether it's on games, what we like to drink or eat, and it is important to practice empathy for each other on that. Today, you learned that sometimes people prefer different things. They have different preferences. Remember that word, preferences. Having empathy helps you notice and understand preferences, and that they can change. Maybe someday I'll enjoy playing with this little gold mouse as much as Boris does. My preferences could change. You can be friends and get along by respecting different preferences. We're going to wrap up our lesson today by listening to the empathy song. Draw a heart in the air when you hear the word empathy. Bye-bye.
In every situation, your feelings mean so much to you, but you know that you're not alone. There's other folks with feelings too. So when you get together, try to understand how they might feel, because they might have their own ideas with feelings that are just as real. Oh, empathy means feeling what others feel. You know to do happy, sad, angry, glad. You notice it and you understand. Oh, empathy is feeling what others feel. You're about to do happy, sad, angry, glad. You notice it and you understand. That's right. Empathy means trying to understand how another feels. See the clues on a person's face, then wonder what's their point of view. The next step is compassion. That's being kind and finding ways to help a friend. That's easy when you understand. Oh, empathy means feeling what others feel. You're about to do happy, sad, angry, glad. You notice it and you understand. Oh, empathy is feeling what others feel. You're about to do happy, sad, angry, glad. You notice it and you understand. Oh, empathy means feeling what others feel. You're about to do happy, sad, angry, glad. You notice it and you understand. Oh, empathy is feeling what others feel. You're about to do happy, sad, angry, glad. You notice it and you understand. That's right.